Moving on now, farmers are warning of a food production crisis as the UK suffers its 11th wettest year since records began in the early 1800s, with Storm Kathleen battering the country with heavy rain and strong winds over the last week. I'm joined now by the president of the Farmers Union, Tom Bradshaw. Tom, very good evening to you. Welcome to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. It's difficult to see the effects of all of this rain sometimes when you live in somewhere like London. You know, you just hope when you go out you've got an umbrella with you. But how bad has it actually been for your farmers?
Well, like you say, it's been really extreme, the rainfall that we've had over the past 6 to 9 months. For many, this started back in the summer when they were trying to harvest crops. But then we had Storm Babette back in mid-October, which really set the tone for the winter to follow. And we've just had flooding event after flooding event. We had Storm Henk in January, and it's just put incessant pressure on businesses over this period in time. And many haven't been able to plant their crops, and the crops that we did plant in the autumn haven't thrived, and many have flooded out. And then now in the spring, we're at lambing time, and unfortunately the rainfall events are putting huge pressure on those that are lambing outside at the moment. And there is real pressure on those young lambs, and there are higher mortality rates than we would normally see because of the rainfall events that we're having.
Right. And of course, we're told quite often that people are finding prices going up everywhere they go, whether it's prices in the supermarket and whether it's prices at the local market that they go to. What sort of pressure is being put on farmers to keep those prices low when they're selling into the sort of supermarket business?
Yeah, well, the volatility that was caused by the Ukrainian situation hasn't gone away, and the 2023 harvest was one of the most expensive we've ever grown, and yet the commodity market's fallen away. But if you look at our milk sector or our horticultural sector, it's been incredibly challenging to pass these cost increases up the supply chain, and it's putting huge pressure on farming businesses to be able to continue to make a viable living. And so then we've had this weather. And potato farmers, they're late planting the crop now. They had a very difficult harvesting period. And many, the confidence has been absolutely shattered. And they're now looking at it and thinking, what do I do going forward? Can I afford to invest in my business? Can I afford to continue producing the food that I'm so proud to produce?
I mean, we've seen a lot of restaurants closing down. We've seen a lot of hospitality businesses not being able to sort of make ends meet any longer. Do you think that's going to be what we'll be seeing in the farming sort of region as well?
Yeah, according to the DEFRA statistics, there's about 5,000 less farmers in business now than there was 5 years ago. And the pressures are greater than we've ever seen. And I think the real crux of this is that farmers and primary food producers are carrying all of the risk for the whole supply chain. And we really need to look at how we can share that risk through the supply chain. That's about long-term partnerships so that there really is a shared interest, a shared endeavor to make sure that we continue producing the country's food. We've got 70 million people here living on an island, and that's a wonderful opportunity for British agriculture. But we've got to make sure that we're not undercut by lower standard imports and make it impossible to get the returns from the market that we need to reinvest in the country's food production for the future.
Right. And I understand there's a government flooding recovery fund for those farmers who are unfortunately, affected by these floods, but it's not working as well as it should, I'm told.
No, look, the headline is a farm recovery fund is very, very welcome. And clearly we've been waiting to see the details since January. Unfortunately, when it was rolled out earlier this week, the farms that we expected to be eligible just simply were not included within the criteria that would make them eligible for the funding. So there have been changes announced tonight. We're still working through those changes to see how that helps the eligibility. They've removed one critical criteria, which was a limit of only 150 meters from a named watercourse. And so that will make sure that there are more members and more farmers across the country that are eligible, but there will still be many that are missing out. And we'll continue to look at the detail of this to see what further changes need to be made to make sure that those that have borne the brunt of this are able to recover some of their lost income and some of the costs that they're going to have to get their farms back to where they were previously.
Right. And we saw some farmers in Westminster, didn't we, a few weeks back, who were sort of demonstrating against the government about all manner of things. We've seen it in Europe, we've seen it in the Netherlands, we've seen it in France as well. A lot of farmers upset at some of the targets that are being set, some of the net zero stuff that's happening around that. What's the position with many farmers, and why were they so angry they had to go to Westminster?
But the pressure on farming businesses, we've had huge volatility, we've had a lot of inflation. Fairness in the supply chain is something that many don't believe is there, and as I say, there's a huge amount of risk in producing the country's food, and they just don't believe that there is that shared endeavor with the supply chain. And then there's imports coming in that are produced using techniques and technologies which are illegal to use here. And that is, we are not on a level playing field. And the NFU has always stood for fair trade. And fair trade and free trade are not the same thing. And at the moment, we are bringing in imports that we would not be able to produce in this country. Whether that be Italian eggs that are coming in with a warning from the Food Standards Agency to make sure they're cooked properly, because they cannot be guaranteed salmonella free. Whereas our eggs produced here, they've got the lion code on them. It means they are guaranteed salmonella free. And there's many instances like that where there's crop protection products being used, which we don't have access to here. And farmers are really feeling under the cosh. So they've got a lot of things against them at the moment. I do believe that the administration in DEFRA is doing everything they can to work with us, but they really need to start demonstrating that they have a plan for food production in this country, and that they recognize just how serious these weather events of the last 9 months have been, and really look to put the support in place, which means our members have the confidence to invest in their businesses for the future.
Sure. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Tom Bradshaw, the president of the National Farmers Union. We're keeping an eye on the markets to see exactly what prices go up, what prices go down. But shortages sometimes, but we seem to get through it. Tom, thanks very much indeed.